Hi, I'm Kinkas and I'm a synth DIY guy. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to take a look at the Select 2 dual CV processor from Joranalogue. Select 2 is a very clever utility module featuring two selectable inputs, a hold input, a select input, a unity input, and an attenuverter for each one of the two channels. The output from channel A is normal to be mixed into the output from channel B, so it can be a mixer. The first input on both channels is normal to an accurate 5 volts voltage source, so you can also use it as an offset generator, both negative and positive due to the attenuverter. With the hold input, you can use it as a track and hold module. Sending a gate to the unity input makes the module bypass the attenuverter, and a gate into select input selects between inputs 1 and 2. So let's have a look at what cool things you can do with this module. The simplest thing would be to just use the attenuverter as a voltage source, since the input number 1 is normalized to 5 volts. So I can just take this output right here, plug it into the 1 volt per octave of my even VCO by Bufaco. I love the even VCO, but it doesn't have a wide-ranging coarse knob, which I like to have on oscillators. So I can use the Select 2 knob to make up for that, to fulfill that purpose. So let's turn on the oscillator. Here, as you can see, tunes really well, sounds great, but the tune knob itself is very limited range. It's just a fine tune. So if you want to do things like I like doing really wide sweeps manually, then I can use the very high quality potentiometer and very nice rubberized knob of the Select 2. Make it a joy to do this sort of thing, right? And having two of them means that I can use both of my even VCOs and FM one into the other and have a great lot of fun using both channels of the Select 2 for the same purpose. So that's one thing I like to do with the Select 2 and the even VCO. Without something like this, just couldn't do it, right? So that's pretty much the simplest thing you can do with the Select 2. Now I can choose a voltage source here, like the mug slicer, and put it onto input 1, and we can take a LFO from filter 8 here, stick it into input 2, and we can send the output over to EFM of generate 3, and we'll take that full output into my mixer over. We'll modulate some volumes, animate that wave a little bit, let's turn the LFO down a little bit, and now why don't we come over to Ornament and Crime and choose Quadraturia, which is a quad LFO, and we'll send one of those outputs over to the select input in Select 2. Right, that's a little bit slow, we can make it faster. Very cool. Maybe make the LFO a little bit slower. So as you can see, I'm basically selecting between two different voltage sources as they go into my oscillator. So that's pretty handy. Now here's another cool use for it. If we now use Ornament and Crime as a quantizer, so we'll go to Quanter Main, Aeolian mode, and let's take that sequencer, the mux slicer, into input 1 of channel B here. And we'll open that up, and we'll leave channel A in center so it's not doing anything. And from the output B, we'll go into input number 1 of the Ornament Crime as a quantizer, and we'll take that output into the volt per octave input of generate 3. Let's take the core output this time, that nice triangle, into the mixer here. So as you see, now our mux slicer sequence is perfectly quantized to an Aeolian scale. And what we can do now with the top knob of Select 2, since we didn't plug anything into the output, is use it as an offset to move the center pitch of our sequence up and down. So it's like a transpose right now, right? And since this offset is being applied before the quantizer, it keeps the scale. Pretty cool, very useful. And as you can see, if I plug something into here, then this knob doesn't affect it anymore. You can use this as a separate voltage source or attenuverter or anything else that it does. So you can use them together to great effect, but you can also use them individually, separately. Now this is a good opportunity to try out the unity input, right? I can use my navigator here, for example, to send a voltage into the unity input. So what I can do is I can tune two states of transposition, one being in unity and the other affected by the knob. And I can have a third one, my other output of the navigator, into the select here. And since one input is normal to 5 volts and the other is not, we can now have, there you go, a nice low one. Here's the attenuverter, and here's unity. Unity input 1, unity input 2. Attenuverter, no attenuverter. Attenuverter, no attenuverter. So now I'm basically able to select between 3 different transposition values by using these 2 controllers right here on my navigator fader from Acid Rain. So as the voltage goes high on this knob here, I'm selecting input 2, which is not normal to 5 volts, so that's 5 octaves lower. And of course I can send a voltage into that input as well, which could even be from a second Select 2 if I had one. So that's another cool use of Select 2. Now you can use it as a sample and hold as well. Let me plug in my Pico System 3 here just so I can use the noise source from it. So I'll take the white noise output, plug it into channel 1 of Select 2 there. Now we need a square wave LFO with pulse width control, and I'll tell you why in a minute. In fact, we can probably use the mux slicer to do that. So I'll have 7 faders up and 1 down. So let's take that COM IO again. We'll plug it into the hold input of Select 2, make it super fast. So as you can see, it's acting as a sample and hold now. Now the track and hold is different than a normal sample and hold, because the sample and hold will just always hold a single voltage until it receives another clock, and then it'll sample another voltage and send it. But the Select 2 hold input lets the voltage through when gate is low and holds it when gate is high. So that's why you're hearing that noise modulation right here. If I turn this up, it's just always high. It's never actually resampling. It's never actually grabbing another voltage. When I turn one of these down, then there you have it. And you hear that little percussive from the white noise as it goes through here. If I turn down more of these, you hear a longer white noise segment, right? But yeah, if you have a very, very wide high pulse on your LFO, it's barely noticeable, the noise as it goes through, right? And of course you can use, instead of a noise, you can use a sine LFO and get that kind of a stepped thing. Right? Noise again. So that's a random sequence there. And it's got that nice percussive element. You probably use a gate or an envelope and a VCA to isolate only the notes instead of the noise. Now a track and hold is what you would use, for example, with a ribbon controller, if you want to maintain the gliding of the ribbon, but also keep the note when you lift your finger, so that if you have a long release envelope, it won't go back to the lowest note possible when you release your finger. It'll hold that note. So why don't we set that up with my sensor sandwich from a few years back. Okay, so let's stop this for now. I'll set it up and I'll be right back. Okay, so here it is. This is my ribbon controller, the sensor sandwich. Go check out that video if you haven't seen it. It's just 2 sensors. The position sensor, which is just a soft pot, and underneath there's a pressure sensor that I ripped out of a broken key bed. So I'm sending the pressure sensor output into my Joranalogue Link 2 buffered multiple, and one of the outputs is triggering an envelope generator right here, the Sonic Potions descent. The output of the descent opens the VCA here. Now the other output of the multiple is going into my comparator, compared to, and it has some logic outputs here. The OR output is outputting basically an inverted gate, so it's positive anytime I'm not pressing the sensor. When I press it, it goes low. So that's something that you need to do, somehow invert the gate in order to use Select 2 as a track and hold for a ribbon controller. And that output is going into the hold input on Select 2 here. The ribbon output, or the pitch output of my ribbon controller, is going into Select 2. So Select 2 is doing 2 things for me right now. The attenuverter can be used to scale the CV coming from the ribbon, and the hold input over here holds that last note so that I can have a longish decay on my envelope and not have the ribbon controller's note go all the way low when I let go, right? So let's check that out. See, as I let go, it maintains that note. If I weren't using a track and hold, immediately upon lifting my finger, the note would go all the way low. And a normal sample and hold wouldn't allow me to do glides or vibrato. Let's turn up the generate 3 a little bit. Now if I want less range, I just turn that down. Cool. So quite a few uses for Select 2, as you can see. I like to always have it handy because it's my favorite utility module. I use it a lot, even if just to attenuverter a signal before it goes into a CV input that doesn't have an attenuverter, something as simple as that, or to just mix 2 signals together, right? And that can be used for modulation and audio, as well as these other more advanced uses, such as the 3 transposition values by using Unity and Select, and the track and hold features, a kind of a sample and hold, and also a track and hold by inverting the gate and sending it in there. I think that's it for today. It's a simple module. It's one of those modules that people don't get super excited about because it doesn't make sound on its own, but having it potentializes your system, expands the possibilities that you have with your modulation and sound sources. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit like, subscribe, consider joining my Patreon to help me keep these videos coming, especially in times of pandemic. It's been a little bit difficult for me to have time to make these, but I'm making an effort getting up real early or staying up real late so that I could keep them coming. So thanks again for watching. See you soon. Stay noisy.